Welcome to a new episode of The World According to Craig. Today, we're going to have an amazing producer join us to talk about what it means to craft stories for the public and also be a real live human being. I don't know how you end up becoming a producer, and I'm guessing you don't either, so I'm really excited to welcome our guest, Ben Everard. Thank you so much for joining us for a conversation today.
Thank you very much for having me. Very excited to be here. Hopefully I add something of, that someone finds useful, but very excited.
I have a feeling you're a storyteller at heart, so there'll be a lot that will be useful in that vein. And we're going to talk about what it means to tell a story or to bring a story to life. But I would first love for people to get to know you as well as I do, although they won't have the benefit of a decade of friendship. In that vein, I guess it's been over a decade now.
Over now, yeah.
So you grew up in, and we have a running theme unintentionally on this show of welcoming people from the Midwest. You grew up in the Midwest, like me, and are a solid non-Angelino at heart, although it's now where you call home. How did you end up here? Because when we met, we were both lawyers. Well, you were a lawyer and I was pretending to be a lawyer, although I was technically...
You were credentialed fully, so we were both indeed lawyers. Yeah, no, I was born in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and grew up primarily in Crystal Lake, Illinois. So it's suburban Chicago, 45 miles northwest of the city of Chicago. Lovely place to grow up. I very much enjoyed it. I think there is something to the sort of Midwest mentality they say that exists.
People, work hard, be nice.
Yeah, work hard, be nice. It's exactly right. I think there's truth to that statement, first of all, and I think people from the Midwest personify it. And that's not putting anyone else down in any other region, but I just think there is a niceness to the Midwest that really comes through. But I think sort of like a lot of people that probably do grow up in a smaller town in America or in just the Midwest, there's something admirable about the big city and Los Angeles in particular. Sort of you go west to chase your dream. That was
Go West, young man. Wasn't that the...
Yeah, there's I don't know what it was, but some sort of a drive to see that part of the country, and it was the centerpiece of storytelling.
But you were before that. You were on the East-ish coast for undergrad and law school.
From growing up in Crystal Lake, I went to the University of Miami down in Florida. And so that was, absolutely. East Coast, Florida, Miami, which I think is one of the most vibrant cities in America right now. Certainly was then as well. I loved my time in Miami, Florida. It was absolutely wonderful. Part of that as well was one, wanting to escape to better weather. There's a common theme there. South Florida and Southern California both have beautiful weather.
I could not do the humidity. You are a better man than me. That is not a thing. And now Florida feels like it's fallen off the rails a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot going on down there in Florida. But Miami was a wonderful place to be. But then I ended up going to law school in D.C. So again, sort of on the East Coast.
We almost went to law school together. I don't know if you know this, but I had a scholarship to Georgetown and ended up not going there. I was just narrowly avoided.
We were definitely close. I was at GW, which was a wonderful place to go to law school in DC. I think if you're going to study law, there really isn't a better city in America than Washington DC, where they make the laws. So that was really a wonderful experience, and I spent 3 years there. But ultimately, ended up taking a job as a lawyer at Quinn Emanuel, as you know, which is where I met you. And I think it's one of the best law firms in the country, certainly on the litigation front. They're very well known. And
I was the first person you met in LA.
Literally.
It was a poor introduction to Los Angeles because I was a wild child at that age. Not wild in any salacious meaning, but more of I was like, let's go to dinner every night.
and I thought that was the perfect introduction to LA because that's not what you do, if you grow up in a smaller town in the Midwest. You don't go to dinner every night, but that was a great way to sort of see
the city. It was really just masking the fact that I can't cook, so I had to go out to restaurants. COVID has been a real struggle for me. I have kept Uber Eats in business. So you're out in LA. You are being a real attorney. You're building real relationships. I remember this distinctly. You knew a lot more about being an attorney than I did. Then I left to continue consulting, which I was doing even while I was there. And then you followed suit and left to become a film and TV producer, right? It's a pretty inspiring story when you think about it. You were like, okay, I'm going to be a producer. And then you became a producer, and we'll get to you've had some really successful projects under your belt, but what was that like? What was the conversation like with Mary, who I know and love,
yeah.
and your family back home and everything else. When you explain, you're like, I'm quitting being a lawyer, which in the Midwest is like the stable like career and profession. It's like something you can do for 50 years. And you're like, I'm going to be a producer, and you figured this out like one square at a time, so to speak, right? Like it's not, there's no book of like, I mean, now there is, now there are textbooks, as you say, in college courses, but a decade ago, even there weren't. There was just the Peter Stark program, and that was just a lecture series for all intents and purposes.
I remember my exit interview at Quinn. And literally the person who was giving the exit interview said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to...
You had an exit interview? They didn't ask me why I left.
I did. I did the whole
cool.
thing. I did the whole exit interview. And they said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to go try to be a producer. And I remember literally her saying, like, what do you know about producing? And I don't think she meant it in a condescending way. But it was just literally like, do you know what you're doing? Like, you're going to go out and be a producer? Good luck.
She's like, do you want us to keep your office warm?
There's some truth to that, I think. Look, on the one hand, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I think that was advantageous, right? I do have the ability to kind of put a blinder on and focus on a goal and just march toward that goal no matter what. And so, yeah, there were a lot of obstacles. And frankly, knowing what I know now, would I make the same decision at the time? Maybe, maybe not, because that ignorance, I think, in some respects was slightly helpful. But I also had...
blindly into the breach.
Yes, indeed. But I also had a semblance of a plan, right? So when you're litigating for 3 years, and a big part of that is entertainment related, you start to uncover some facts that there's a thread of a theme to it, right? And the big part of that, ultimately, is control of IP. Almost every fight that I was involved in on the litigation side for an entertainment matter came down to who could do what with the IP, the intellectual property, right? Who controlled the rights to that book and could then turn it into a movie.
Nobody wants the rights to civil procedure.
Not that one. I would ultimately agree with you. And so I said to myself, look, if you control good IP, you can be a producer.
So you went in with a plan, which was own the story and then make the story.
That's right. Once I figured out, I knew how to own a story, right? I could acquire it. And so I would look for good stories. And once I acquired one that was good enough, I would then figure it out. And it didn't ultimately work exactly like that. There were other dots that you have to put into place.
It's that line. It's how to walk between point A and point B, and it like you get almost all the way to point B, and then you zigzag around up and back again, and it just all over the place.
2 steps forward, 5 steps back, 1 step forward, 10 steps back. I mean, that was 100% the journey for a number of years.
Skiing on ice. So what was that? What was that like? Like you went in blindly into the breach, and then you're in the thick of it. You have a plan to own the IP, and then what? Like every hiccup, every challenge, there's an element of faith. There's an element of I'm in this to win it, and you ultimately did. But that doesn't detract from the fact that that's got to be somewhat like a terrifying experience for at moments, and inspirational and terrifying at the same time, perhaps.
There are definitely a couple of successes, and I'm looking forward to talking about those. But those are only on the heels of a lot of failures, right? And so there's no doubt that if you want to be a producer in Hollywood, you have got to be fearless when it comes to the word no with respect to projects moving forward, right? They're gonna fall apart. People are gonna say no, and you just have to not let it affect you at all. And you have to keep your eyes on the prize, as they say. Keep moving forward and don't let it phase you, because if you're gonna falter by a failure or an obstacle or a hurdle or a no, there's no chance of success, because that's what you're going to hear 100 times a day.
I feel like I've talked to a lot of people in a lot of different careers, from science to acting to politics in my life. And the common theme that everyone says is like, you've got to get used to the word no, and you've got to plow through it. I'm really starting to wonder if there's a career where you don't have to get used to the word no.
We can talk about Yes Day.
Exactly. We're going to, we will get to that. So you've produced some really incredible, you had some TV series, and then you have this really, what's your first big moment? Is Lights Out the first?
I think definitely Lights Out, right? So that was I ended up partnering with a wonderful former studio executive named Lawrence Gray, who's my partner now, and we raised some capital from some very close buddies of mine who are some of my best friends in the world, and that was our ability to ultimately acquire IP with a little bit of money behind it, right? And so, and we're not talking a ton, but enough to take something off the table, right? Which is acquire it and own it. We came across this short film called Lights Out, which was a 2-minute genre short, very, very elevated,
From
smart idea. Swedish director, that's right, David Sandberg, who did it for an online contest. Didn't even win the contest, right? He submitted it. It was a
jokes on the
short.
contest.
I think he won Best Director, but he didn't win Best Short. Anyways, we saw it and it was a brilliant idea. It was about a ghost that exists only in darkness. When the lights are on, you're safe, but the lights go off and she can be there and hurt you. And we looked at that, and I think this does show a common theme about kind of the types of stories we look to tell. Is like, is there a big idea there at the core? And for us, we saw that short film and said, everyone has a fear of the darkness, right? Dark. It's innate in our instinctual humanness. And yet there's not really a movie out there that owns the fear the dark space, right? So if Jaws is the movie about sharks and Jurassic Park is the movie about dinosaurs, right? Where's the movie about the darkness? It didn't really fully exist.
No, it's funny you say that because there's The Others and Babadook, and there's all kinds of horror films or scary movies, but that are dark, but they're not about the darkness. They're about an unseen. Like one of the first rules of horror they tell you is like don't show the monster, right? Like
what you don't see can be scarier than what you do see. Absolutely.
And in your case, it's now shocking and simple and obvious, but weird that no one had, in 100 years of horror, no one had owned the darkness.
That's just it. We started doing our diligence and saying like, someone must have done this because it seemed so obvious. But as we kept looking, there was a couple of movies that tried to enter that arena, but they'd never really found their audience. So no one effectively owned the fear of the dark space. And so that's a big idea when you come across something like that. And so we took that short film, we acquired it, worked on it with David, brought in a wonderful writer to write it, and packaged it up at a very high level, made the movie for $5 million, and it grossed almost $150 million worldwide. And so the first day I was ever on a movie set was also David Sandberg's first day ever on a movie set, the director. And it was a movie we were making.
I remember visiting you at the house up in Glendale-ish area that you were filming in. And I mean, that movie, I don't like scary movies, and that movie is scary.
It is.
So that's awesome. You hit it out of the park. And like everyone with a home run freshman sort of effort or foray, question is, what's your sophomore album debut?
Sure.
And what's your junior album debut? What's like, what does that look like? And
what have you done for me lately?
What have you done for me lately? So your latest project is Yes Day.
Yep.
Which is, I have been saying for the last year, and we've had other guests on the show, Derek McClay, who you know, who've been saying for the last year what America needs. Everybody meets America with these commercial mashups of "We're here for you now more than ever," and it's very emotional and drawn out. And what we've been saying was what America needs is like an escape, is just a happy, wonderful moment, a feel-good family moment. Like Tenet wasn't the movie to reopen America with. Like it was a lovely movie, but it wasn't the movie to reopen America with. Something that people can get behind, embrace, and feel good after they watch. Something that can remind them in the middle of the pandemic that life can be awesome and brilliant in so many ways. And shockingly, no one has done that for now a year. So once again, you've walked into a white space, but a white space that you didn't intend on walking into because you finished Yes Day before the pandemic.
That's right.
And now by pure luck, no one has stepped into this, and now you've got a certifiable, bona fide, amazing movie on your hands.
It's look, I don't know that I'll ever come across a simpler premise in my career, right? Of Yes Day. Once a year for 24 hours, parents are not allowed to say no to their kids.
This seems like a recipe for disaster.
But that's the beauty of it, right? From your perspective, right? From an adult's perspective, from the parent's perspective, it's an, oh my gosh, how could I possibly make it through the day? But from the kid's perspective, it's the ultimate wish fulfillment movie. I get to pick what we do all day. Mom and dad cannot say no, which is one of the reasons why I think it has the potential to just really work and find an audience, is that it's working on multiple levels, right?
And America loves Jennifer Garner.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. And should, by the way, because she is undeniably wonderful.
So the question that everybody asks, have you done Yes Day with your kids?
I have, in part because I knew I was going to be asked that question.
How did it go, and how many broken bones and bruises?
Look, it went great. I think as we were doing the research on the project, because there is a mom blog sphere, parent blog sphere world out there where they talk about sort of, is a Yes Day a good idea or a bad idea? And one of the things that we came to a conclusion of in doing the research was a lot of parents were surprised at the non-material asks that the kids were making. What I mean by that is you would assume that they're going to say, can I go drive a Ferrari that we rent down to Disneyland and then eat cotton candy all day, right? That's what you assume the kids are going to ask for. But a lot of parents found that they were asking for, Mom and Dad, can you put the phone down? Mom and Dad, can we build a fort? Mom and Dad, can we build a Lego set together that's going to take 2 hours? And it's what you're realizing what they want is the time and the attention and the focus. And it becomes quite...
So many parents have had so much time with their kids in COVID. I feel like now the kids are like, Mom, Dad, can you take your marijuana gummies and go in a corner and leave me alone?
Well, look, we opened the movie up in a really big way. There's a lot of wish fulfillment to it. There is ice cream for breakfast. There is going through a car wash with the windows down. Which
I saw that. Wouldn't that destroy it?
Look, it's gonna be a thing. I'm pretty sure. I think Netflix is gonna get.
You're gonna get the memes out. It's a whole thing. So you have very well-behaved children, whom I adore. Harper has been in control of the world since she was born.
Very true.
So I'm not worried about them, but what happens out of curiosity in a Yes Day when a child does say, I would like to drive the car?
Look, there's 3 rules. You put ground rules in, right? It can't be expensive. So there's no, I want to go buy a thing that costs $1,000. So you put a dollar cap on of whatever's appropriate for you and your family. It can be $10, it can be $50, it can be $100, right? So you put a dollar cap and that all of a sudden narrows what the possibilities are. The other thing that you do is you say, it can't be dangerous. No one is jumping out of an airplane if no one's ever done that before, right? So you make sure that no one is going to be physically injured during this. And then most people put a mileage cap. So that, you can't go run down to Disneyland because that's what we want to do. It's either the dollar cap or the mileage cap, or you can't get on an airplane and go to, Miami, Florida tomorrow.
Honestly, as a child, I would have been I would have been like the Maldives. Now let's go. It's a 21-hour flight. We'll be there 24 hours in.
If you're going to do a Yes Day, those are generally speaking the 3 ground rules. It can't be expensive, it can't hurt anybody, and it can't be far away.
Which kind of could be the ground rules for a career. Okay, so you've got this amazing movie. You tell this story, but the real question is, what's next, and then what's next, and what's next, and what's next. But the question behind all of those nexts is, how do you decide to tell a story? So you've got this plan, you're going to acquire this IP. You've got these hits, which are great, from IP that you've acquired and you've brought forward, and you can make the best quality movie with like the greatest cast and the greatest script, and it won't find an audience. There are a lot of reasons that a movie or story won't find an audience. But let's say that the marketing department hasn't screwed it up. Let's say that you have every opportunity in the world. How do you find a picture that has, or a story that has an audience? There was the film, Sam Mendes film, The Revolutionary Road, right? And everybody talks about how great the film was. And when I saw it, I said to myself, oh, I can understand why no one watched this, because it highlighted the choices that we sometimes make that compromise our dreams. And no one wants to be reminded of compromising their own dreams. So nobody wanted to see that movie. It was depressing as hell. How do you find stories that you can tell that people want to see or will enjoy or that will move them? Like, how do you even begin that process?
Well, look, I think audience tastes are constantly evolving and changing. So my answer today might be different than my answer, 5 years from now, right? But I do think right now there is a very big and meaningful escapist component to what people want to watch. To your point, there's been people have felt, pretty trapped in their houses and they want to get out. And one way to do that is via story, right? Is to escape into a movie and see something that feels big and feels fun and feels escapist is really the best way to do that. But, I think to take a step back for a minute, the answer to your question of what makes a great film, I mean, I don't have the magic formula. If I did, I'd be sitting in a different house right now. But from my perspective, I think one of the things that is very important is like, what is the big idea behind the premise? Like, what's the hook, really, right, of this film? I'm going to bring dinosaurs to life, Jurassic Park. There's going to be a killer shark hunting our heroes, Jaws. Yes Day, for one day
Is
a
this
year.
what they call high concept?
Yeah, it is. No, high concept is probably the right word to describe that. But it's very, very important and meaningful. Especially right now, like the streaming revolution, I think right now is changing the way that films are made. And here's what I mean by that. The opportunity cost to put on something on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu, you have 3 minutes, maybe 2, to capture my attention, right? Now, it used to be that you'd take the first act of a movie in the first 10 minutes and it's all about character development and it's a slow burn and you're trying to invest in who our hero is and who our villain is and why they matter. Now, you have literally 2 to 3 minutes to capture the audience's attention. And that changes what you do in the first 2 to 3 minutes. Absolutely. Absolutely it is. So you got to have a big idea. You got to capture their attention right away. And the other thing I would argue is you want to do it with the best people. Making movies is not easy. It's a very difficult thing to do. But there is a reason, I think, that some people are at, the Academy Awards again and again and again, right? Why is Ang Lee one of the best directors of all time? Why is Spielberg one of the best directors of all time? It is because they're great at what they do. They were born to tell stories in that medium. And so, why is LeBron James the best basketball player in the world? 1, he's physically incredibly talented, but 2, he's just driven, works really hard. You mash all those together and you're the best basketball player in the world. You can't just be that. There is a innate talent that comes with it. So we try to match stories with great storytellers, right? So put Jennifer Garner into a family movie. She's Meryl Streep in that lane, and put Meryl Streep into a Steven Soderbergh movie like The Laundromat we did. And that's a wonderful place to be. And have James Wan produce a horror movie. Those are titans in their respective lanes. And so we try and find good stories that have big ideas behind them, match them with the perfect talent to tell those stories. And then really the producer's job at some level is to just box out and let the talent be the talent and do as best as you can there.
So taking a step back into that vein, because that's the whole process, right? It's like beginning to end in that vein. But taking a step back to that very beginning and the concept of the middle, the big idea, do you make a list of big ideas that you want to see? Like, are you reading everything that comes out? Like, is it as simple as like you read the New York Times one day and there's a story and you're like, or is it a little bit of everything?
The honest answer is it's a little bit of all of that, right? The way Yes Day came to be was a social media post by Jen Garner. Jen Garner posted on Instagram one of her Yes Days, a photo from one of her Yes Days. My wife happened to see it. She nudged me and said, look at this, we should do a Yes Day with the kids. Jen Garner does these Yes Days. And I remember telling her, like, that's the craziest idea ever, but Jen Garner doing Yes Day as a movie is the biggest home run I've ever heard. And so we knew it was based off of a book that we read to our kids. So we called up the agents that represented the author and said, is the book available? It was. We acquired the book. We called up Jen's team and said, would she want to do this as a movie? Now, that was a kind of a natural connection between something that we knew was personal to her because she does it with her kids. We knew it was also a big idea at its core. It was based in IP. Mm-hmm. We acquired that IP. We called her. She wanted to do it. So now it's never that easy. And what I just described to you was a 6-month process, not a 1, 2, 3 phone call sort of thing. But it was that light bulb moment of matching a person, who could do this, a person who could make it happen with wonderful IP and building a connection there.
So why does that process take 6 months? Like, why isn't it a 3 phone call process?
It's a great question. The answer in part is because there are people around all of these people whose job it is to say no. And I mean that in the nicest of ways.
Kind of funny for a movie called Yes Day that everybody says no. I'm just saying.
There are agents, there are lawyers, there are managers, there are competing projects, and there's every reason in the world to say no. This goes back to sort of the earlier part of our conversation. If you're afraid to hear the word no, you're just not going to make it. But if you can sort of penetrate that wall with an idea that's big enough, it gives you a chance. And you have to, scale 10 more walls before you get to the place of really being able to even take it out. Okay. And so, acquiring the rights to a book sounds simple, but that is a long form process. There's lawyer negotiations. How much are you paying? What's the acquisition price? And then when you finally get that squared away, then you've got to talk to agents and managers of talent and try and get them on board.
So Hollywood is filled with people that say no to things that you want to do, and you have to find a way. Like, is the job of the producers just finding a way to yes?
In part, that's true. I mean, we worked with Sylvester Stallone on a project for a little while, and I think he said one time something about producers that I think makes a lot of sense. And he said, what great producers do is they make something out of nothing, right? And so you just have this idea and you make it into a tangible product at the end of the day, a movie, right? An idea into a movie is a 2, 3, 4, 5 year process. There's a movie we're working on right now that we're 5 years into, but for all the right reasons. And I think it's going to be a great film.
I would agree with that. Knowing the big idea behind it. But so when you come up with these big ideas, do you think about the audience, or is just the good story idea enough?
It's both, right? You have to understand who is the audience for this movie, because as a producer, you have to put on sort of that marketing hat and say, how am I going to sell this, and how is a studio going to sell this? There has to be an audience out there that it's going to find. It's okay if it's a niche audience, right? We're doing a movie right now we're developing that's in the crypto space about Bitcoin. And I'd say that at some level, that's kind of a niche audience, but
it
is.
You know my anti-Bitcoin status, but but also the public is like what the hell is Bitcoin status?
But there's also a very passionate sort of base that you're starting with, and so that the niche of that audience might be enough to get it over the hump, if you will, right?
Okay.
But at the end of the day, we try to elevate material to make it as sort of critically responsive as you can get, but at the same time, you want to elevate it commercially because you want eyes to see the movie, right? You want it to find an audience.
So when you look at something from a commercial standpoint or from a creative standpoint, do you find yourself, we had a guest on the show who is a fashion designer. And so the question was, can you compromise creativity? He has designed for red carpet looks, and he's designing a collaboration for Banana Republic. It's like two ends of the scale, right? Like there's very high-end art, and then there's mass consumption, and where's the middle ground? And he talked about, he had some really interesting answers about how you compromise or don't compromise on art. And you have to believe that something's good. You still have to believe in the choices that you make. As a producer, do you ever find yourself at a point where you are looking at something that you're creating, because it's a business form of art, right? It's like there's the tactical making a movie, but there's an art that you're bringing forward in the film. And it's your responsibility to sort of shepherd that whole thing. So do you ever find yourself saying, this has gotten to a place where I don't believe in the picture anymore, and you just walk away?
Look, you can never jeopardize the integrity of a film or television show at the end of the day. So certainly there have been points where it's just like this is not for us right now. That said, I think you also are always trying to build the biggest audience that you can for a project. You're trying to set it up to win, right? So it is a very fine balance of maintaining the integrity of what this is ultimately, and you can never jeopardize that. But then building it in a way to set it up for success, right? So yesterday, as an example, the family is a blended family. That was a very conscious decision from us. Jen Garner's married to Edgar Ramirez in the movie. And the kids are all blended, and they're unbelievable and wonderful. And people are embracing that because it looks like America. Okay. That was a decision we made to try and broaden the audience, but it was also made to reflect the reality of the world around us. Okay. And so, we're trying to do both. We're protecting the integrity of the film, and we're also trying to, connect with an audience as big as we can.
Awesome. Well, I think what's fascinating to me is about, we have so many people who have been on this show, and there's like this common thread of people having a dream, and like they achieve that dream, and from the outside, it can look very daunting, right? When you look at somebody at the end of the road, and you're not at the end of your career, but you're not by any means on your last legs. But when you look at the achievement of where you are, there is this vein of, okay, how do I even get there? And the reality is, no matter what subject you're talking about, there's like concrete tactical steps that you can do. There's like a figuring it out, and there's all these considerations bound up, and then they're all packaged by emotions. So I think it's really helpful to just hear how anybody pursues a dream, even if somebody doesn't want to be a producer, like the things that you've gone through, the emotions, the thoughts of stories of like, okay, what is the core idea? How can I bake this down? Are all really important for people. What does that feel like when you go into a movie and you see the big idea and people are laughing and crying? What does that feel like for you?
Look, that's an incredible high. I mean, some of the best sort of moments in my professional career have been listening to or watching or experiencing emotion from an audience on something that you helped create, right? Laughing or screaming or crying or whatever it be. It's the ultimate high. And is really one of the reasons why I get excited to do what I do, because it is incredibly hard. But when you can hit one of those high notes, it's incredibly gratifying. But I think the lesson to sort of instill in some respects is that unfortunately, it takes lows to get to highs, right? There's a lot of failures. There's a lot of roadblocks. There were a lot of times where I had doubts. And I think just perseverance and putting your head down and not getting caught up in the stumbles because they're inevitable. If you can move past them, you can ultimately climb the hill. And I've been fortunate enough a couple of times to have done it in a way that I think I'm very proud of. But I hope to do even more. But I know it's going to take a lot of, there's pain along the way.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think that's probably the lesson for everything. That's the be nice, be a good person, work hard, Midwestern ethic. And I appreciate that. I think that's the lesson of being a producer or a Midwesterner or in any career is you've got to go through a lot of professional no's or a lot of people turning back to get to a yes.
And look, I want to say something about the be nice because it's definitively true. Okay. We have an intern who is now working at a studio who we just pitched 2 weeks ago. Right. So that was a former intern and I'm always nice to our interns. But those people are going to grow and those people are going to grow in their careers and they might be in a position to buy a project from you. Right.
Right.
And so, everyone that you meet along the way at some level you're going to cross paths with likely again and be nice to them.
Better advice we couldn't end on. Thank you so much for joining and thank you for tuning in to The World According to Craig. The lesson here is be nice, work hard, and don't take no for an answer, but in a professional sense, not in a personal one. And if you want more of that advice from amazing people, tune in next week for another episode of The World According to Craig. And in the meantime, thank you so much for joining, Ben.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning in to The World According to Craig, where I believe that everyone has a story not only that could inspire us or that we want to hear, but we can learn from. And when we learn from each other, we do a lot better. So tune in every week. I know I'll be here.